think so.
Okay, welcome to the Scoop. I'm Farah.
And I'm Nicole.
And today we are talking about cultural and belonging at Sonnenberg, which is something that sets, the whole environment up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to start and jump right in. And so Nicole, what is culture? Why is it important? What would you say about that? How we define it?
Yeah, it's hard to define culture. I think it's like one's like being. I would describe culture as I would describe it as maybe like a community in a way. I would describe it as I don't know, that's really hard.
It is hard. It was interesting because I've asked probably about 10 different people
I have
in the
a
last
definition
week.
of it,
Ooh,
but
you want to pick some pieces of that maybe and see? I'm like, because I'm curious to
this
see.
is like, it's kind of in like ABA terms too, which is like quite interesting, but it says that like culture is the extent to which a group of individuals engage in overt and verbal behavior, reflecting shared behavioral learning histories, serving to differentiate the group from other groups, and predicting how individuals within the group act in specific setting conditions. This is culture, reflects a collection of common verbal and overt behaviors that are learned and maintained by a set of similar social and environmental contingencies.
That's definitely ABA.
That's a lot of ABA, like mumbo jumbo. I mean, but I butchered explaining it myself, so.
I know you did great. So that's interesting because I asked some leads, BCBAs, I asked techs and some mentors. I had even this morning in our mentor meeting, I said, what do you guys think about this? For me, it's connection, which brings in NVC, it brings in our values. Maddox actually brought up culture being he brought up clicks versus, and we were trying to remember that other word that was used.
Yeah.
Not click, but like team or teamwork. What was the other word that we used in
like teams versus clicks? I think is what we're talking about. Yeah.
So he brought that up and he's like, there's different cultures. There's this, I was very proud of him for this. He's like, there's Sonnenberg culture, there's Mount Pleasant and the school and Pleasant Prairie culture. There's different cultures within the tracks. There's different cultures within departments. That's my word. But I think what he was trying to say is there's just different kind of, even though it's the same culture, different connections and different, there's different, I don't know, like it's still kind of.
There's different
I think of
groups that have different, I don't know.
Like we're trying to achieve
together
the same culture and belonging.
Yeah.
But it still is always a progress, right? That's what we've learned with NVC and kind of our trainings over the last, really, I would say 4 years, right? Is that we're looking for connection, culture, belonging. And what came up from that I thought was really stuck out to everybody, especially mentors, is that whole power over, power with, power to, power within.
Yeah.
Is that really with NBC and with our values. That was another thing that Charmaine brought up. And it was just, I had an admin person, Kelly. We talked about culture. Her definition was kind of a little bit different. It was super interesting, but when we all kind of talked about it, it was like, it's our values. And you can take NVC and put that into a value, which is communication. And that creates culture and belonging. Would you agree?
Yeah, because if you're looking at like a community or like a group of people, like what do they have? So they have I guess they would have like similar values to one another or like group values.
Yeah.
They would have like group expectations. So that's what makes like a community, which then you would have like culture within that community.
Yeah. And
I would see, I don't know.
And the question I asked this morning about values and what's different, because then we talked about like our accreditation.
Yeah.
And how there was diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how ours was very different. And we had to kind of, go through that process of like, why is it different? And why is the way we're doing things different than a traditional ABA company.
Yeah, because,
right?
Yeah, because through our
You're falling off.
accreditation, sorry, I always do.
I know, that's why
I
I'm
feel
like,
like
Russ,
finding
continue.
the corner.
Yeah.
So like through our accreditation, they wanted, because part of our ethical code has this cultural responsiveness, and through our accreditation, they wanted everybody to take this course in cultural responsiveness.
Okay.
And I was like, well, we do all these other things though that equal that. So I sent them like our whole curriculum on NBC. I sent them our curriculum on like our values and how we demonstrate our values and like how we teach those and how we embed those into our practices as an organization. And at first they were very black and white as to like, no, you need to take this course. And I'm like, but we have all these
Okay, I remember now.
things.
Mhm.
And so when we explained it in our interview to them, they got it. But when I gave them those materials, they were like, no, you gotta take our course or what the course that we like recommend. And I don't know, to me, that's not very culturally responsive.
I 100% agree.
Um,
And I think that's what, or I don't think, that's what we talked about this morning
mhm.
was, you know, the traditional, I'll say traditional, and this is, I think, in company in general, it is power over. So you have this person goes to this person, goes to this person, go over to this person, you do what I say, you do what blah, 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 blah. That creates a cultural environment, right?
Mhm.
And what we're trying to do, this is just one example, but is to have more, for me, it's power with is the most important to me. And then to power, like give that power over and have power within. That's the way that I kind of look at it, but or power to maybe.
Mhm.
And then, but it does, you still have to have power over in certain things, of course, but really you want this to be this up and down and back and forth. And that's what we talked about this morning.
I mean, I think that like when we talk about like power over, it's also understanding like privilege.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this.
There's a lot. We could go into kind of like every like avenue, but like as much as people maybe don't want like a power over, the reality is that you have it. Like I think that it took me a while to understand that my position alone has power over certain aspects of the organization, just as you have power over the organization. And there has to be like maybe this is my opinion, right? I guess there's not a has to be, but understanding of like what your privileges and what your power over is, because if you don't understand that or are like kind of like shield that, then you might not know that you're expressing that power in maybe that's a good non-ethical way.
I think what was interesting to piggyback that is remember back in professional development day when we were all sitting there, and I did remember Emily L said something, or a mentor said like, I'm just a tech. And then remember, I'm pretty sure it was Emily L was like, what do you mean you're just a tech? And then that created a whole conversation of like what you're talking about. But then we went into how much power a tech has over everybody else. So that's what makes me think, because I mean, and then we gave examples of, I think Nasia gave an example of one company in an adult program or some kind of program, they all decided we're going to make a big statement, we're all going to walk out. Remember that?
Yeah, she did give that example.
And how much power that is. So like there's powers, and I think that's the groups, the powers in groups, the powers in, you know, all of that. So it's super interesting because that's how you create culture and belonging. Right? In my opinion, like you either, and that's where you go back to your values, back to your communication. We have 6 values. We've talked about this in other podcasts. And where you can fit in pretty much anything we talked today, in my opinion, about. Because what I had brought up this morning in the mentor meeting was at the end of the day, we're like, do our values match? Whoever you are in the entire company. If they don't match, it doesn't work out. Or I'm not saying you can not make mistakes. I'm not like, or
You can-
disagree.
Yeah,
or,
I mean, you can restore integrity with
there you
the
go.
values, right?
That's a good point.
But yeah, because when you are creating culture or have culture, you're also looking at groups and culture within a group or a community. And so, yeah, like if you're out of alignment with the values, like, do you have opportunities to get in alignment and restore that integrity? Yes, you
Like
do.
that, yeah.
But if they don't align,
At the end of the day, it's not gonna work.
right.
And that was also kind of what we talked about this morning was, you know, we talk about, again, I'm gonna bring up diversity, equity, and inclusion. We look at that a little bit different. And what you had said is, here, take this, fill out this sheet, take this course or whatever it is, and then we'll call it like you're good for the year. Like it's a lot of companies do. You like check off and you move on. That's not culture to me. That's like, I check the box to make everybody else happy.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, we went over orientation, they read it and we're good to go, right? Well, and that was where true culture and MVC and just that, all the things we're talking about takes time and it never ends,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of work. It's a lot of
work.
like integrity and
Mhm.
drifting, coming back. I mean, how many
Mhm.
times do we drift? And I'm like, oh, or you or me or whoever is like, wait a minute, you know, like,
Yeah.
this is how I'm feeling. This is what, you know. So I think that that's very different. And that's what we were talking about this morning is it really does. And Charmaine had brought this up, I think on Monday when I was talking to her, and she was like, it still comes back to values, because if you're not communicating using NBC or whatever communication, and you're not working together, teamwork, you're not being accountable based off of, I mean, you can go through each one of our values, it falls apart.
Mhm.
And it's just very interesting to see how each person kind of saw that. How do you see
Yeah.
that as far as, do you agree with that? Or is there
Do
more
I-
than that? As far as just values or cultural, do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because can you fit everything into each value? We should be able to, right? Otherwise,
can-
we're missing a value.
I think you could fit everything into each value. Yeah. I think a lot of times it does come back to the like set of values. Now, it would be different if we were an organization that made values and made a mission statement and never followed that, right?
Mhm.
Because then you couldn't go back to the values. Like your culture, if we embed our values into everything that we do and into like our practice.
Yeah.
But if you didn't, then nothing would go back to the values, which would be
Oh, I
really
see.
hard to identify like what the culture is, I think, without them.
Because that makes up, that's how the culture and how you
Evolves, I would say.
evolves with, because we keep going back to the values. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's I mean, that's my opinion on it, but I think that like when you say to like build culture, like how do you build culture? Like that's the big question. And when I look at that, I would say, well, you have a set of values
Yeah,
because the values also add those are the expectations too.
yeah.
They kind of go hand in hand.
As long as you, yeah, like you said, you're always going back and pulling in what value is this? And how do we talk about this and how do we communicate this? And one of the values is, I think, I mean, they're all very important, but if you go to the connection and having that open door, that muscle building space, I'm trying to think of all the
Mhm.
things that we talk about. You got to have that and you got to continue with that. And you got to keep coming back to restoring integrity and that back and forth. Because then it still goes back to power up, power down, power back and forth. And it does shift. And there are privileges within that for sure. But it still has to come to being open to communication and feedback at all times.
I think
Otherwise,
there's a huge like reflection piece in there.
oh, there you go.
Both like
Yep.
yeah, I mean both it's like a self-reflection and like I guess active listening or like reflecting back, right? Um
For sure.
I think that
Authentic listening.
yeah, like I think that's where we've been able to build culture within an organization. is through like reflection.
Absolutely.
Because you
And-
can write a list of like I said before, you can write a list of values all you want.
Well, it's if you're living them
Yeah.
and you're doing them and you're
Mhm.
practicing every day. And when you truly drift from whatever that is, that value, that whatever, having to be pulled back in and being able to communicate and work on that day by day, I just think is what we constantly are attempting to do is,
Yeah.
and it does flex, right? Based
Yeah.
off of a lot of things, you know, there's so many barriers and there's so many different people coming and going. But the fact that, and this is what I think is really cool, is when I meet with somebody that I don't even know, you know, like a tech that's either new or I just don't have, you know, too much of a connection with, and I sit down with them and I see them thinking about, you know, like, well, one, they're not afraid to talk to me. That's a great start, because some people won't, you know, they don't, if you don't have a connection, you don't know me, then, you know, I'm not going to talk to that person. But they're literally thinking and reflecting as they talk, and they're using terms that you're like, wow, they're really like, it's just very intentional, you know, and that's the best thing ever. That's such a good sample of like, we're moving forward every single week, every single day. When I think back what it was 4 years ago and where we are now. That was one of the things the mentor said too.
Yeah.
Talk about how long this has been.
Yeah. And I mean, it's forever going to
Forever.
be, right?
Yeah.
Like it's practice, and it's like a long, like it's
Reflection,
lifelong.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why they say like in yoga, it's like your practice, because it's like you continue to develop like throughout.
Yeah. I've not done yoga, but
Yeah.
but it's just fascinating to me. And that we're always like, for us, and we've talked about this in other in our boundaries podcast too a lot, is how we're constantly like have to pull and slow us down, because we're constantly wanting to do more, constantly wanting to do what's the next step? What do you know? And that's
well,
like,
there's so much to do. There's so much to do in the field. There's so much to do in relation to culture and belonging. And there's always going to be. And so we do need to allow for space to have these like crucial conversations and to reflect and to make sure that we're aligned with our values.
for sure. Yeah. I love all the things that we've, again, every podcast, I swear we have some new stuff going on, you know, and just the different areas that we can talk about with different people about, like even me asking an admin, asking a BCBA, asking a senior, asking a tech, and how they looked at culture and belonging was eye-opening and great and fun alone. Like the admin person went more of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and more of that route. So that was interesting too, to talk about it from that perspective, and how, I mean, we literally, there was 3 different like kind of areas that we were all sitting here talking. And I learned something just in those conversations of like, oh, that's what that means to you. But belonging, like, I think that's kind of an interesting word. What does it feel like to belong? That's different for everybody. I think that's what I learned too, is that what Kelly, Charmaine, and Maddox all said and what made them feel a certain way for belonging was a little bit different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it is going to be different because you also have your own personal values and how you contribute to different groups is at like an how you contribute as individual to the group.
And that's
If that
kind of
makes
what,
sense.
Maddox was saying, you know, is like, I belong, this is my judgment, but I belong, it looks different for me in different areas and how I belong, you know, and he didn't say it like that, but that's my interpretation. And I'm like, that's true. Because for me too, because it is different depending on who's there,
Mhm.
where you're at, I mean, really, any kind of different, I mean, look at all the different meetings there are. There's different.
Well, there's different teams within the larger group. And so your contributions to each team or how you belong to each team, like if you're basing that on what you contribute, then your belonging is going to look like your sense of belonging, I guess, is going to look a little bit different depending on what group. That's only if you contribute belonging to contribution.
Yeah.
Which that's not the same for everybody either.
You're right.
I think
You're
for me, I look at it like that is like what I contribute to each group, it gives me a greater sense of belonging or a lesser sense, but that's not how everyone sees belonging either.
You're right, they don't, because then you can have techs have told me, I've heard this in all areas, but this is something we constantly talk about is like, and this is an MBC thing, but like your emotional safety.
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel safe there? Do I feel, I'm trying to think, it's all the MBC terms, but emotional safety is a big one that I've heard over and over again. Like, do I feel like I can talk and say whatever it is that I need to say, or is this going to happen? And then you have the contribution piece and that's big for me too, is do I feel like I'm adding to this group or experience or person?
I think
right?
I think that can go hand in hand too with connection, because like if I feel like I can contribute more to a certain area or group, then I'm gonna feel a greater sense of belonging, but that's also going to be because maybe I do feel emotionally like safe to share more ideas or bring more of myself into that
That makes
area sense. Because I maybe have a greater connection too with that group. So sometimes that kind of all gets like intermixed and it's interchangeable.
Well, your connection grows based off of that. For me, I would think according to NBC, that is how you create connection, right?
Yeah.
So again, that goes back to belonging, that creates a culture, and it can shift. And then you have integrity and restoring and getting back or more or moving forward is, I don't know, maybe a term that everybody would like kind of agree or understand. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really great. I know we are constantly trying to create like curriculums and trainings and things off of NVC and ACT and all, those are two of the big ones to create and keep moving forward with culture.
Yeah.
So I think there's that too, so we can replicate it, because of course in applied behavior analysis, that's all we want to do is, we want to replicate, right? And that's one of our big things right now is bringing a couple worlds together, different ACT and NBC, which are they're kind of hand in hand, but different verbiage. And then even with NBC, there's different verbiage with different kind of trainers. So taking everything and being able to replicate it in all departments, all levels, all everything, so everybody gets the same thing, right? That's our goal right now. And then to research it and have key, KPIs, right? That's another big goal.
That's another big goal is like how we collect data, or how we measure our progress through things that are very like abstract and
we're gonna do it.
I mean, we're gonna do it, right?
But you're right, though.
It's been something that I thought about for a long time. Like, how do you measure integrity?
Yeah.
How do you like quantify that? I'm not sure. Like you can in like if you're doing like task-based, like, okay, the whole group completed this project in X amount of time, each person had blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But like, how do you do it? How do you do it as it relates to like culture? Like, how do you know that how do you know how to grow culture? And so we've had like curriculums, yes, on our like NVC and on ACT and on like those different areas of like, okay, we're teaching this lesson today and we're moving forward with like how embedding these things into our supervision, our like day-to-day lives.
Well, and we remember we did the podcast where they did that with supervision, and that was, they didn't say it this way, but that was the power with, and how they would have the tech give feedback. Remember that one?
Yeah, because it's like because that's like this book.
Which book is it?
That's what this is from. Is from like like how you embed these things into supervision, like how you embed like culture, how you embed like reflective practice, and bi-directional feedback was a big one.
Yes.
Yeah. Talking about privilege, like it's just important to, I think it's important to know your own culture and know like yourself first, to know how you affect other people and to understand your own like biases that might come into play based off of your learning history.
And I think it's just about being open to that, because I don't think everybody sees themselves as others do. I think that's almost, I mean, that's a different perspective.
That's true.
So I think, I mean, I'm not the same person I was 4 years ago. I look at things completely different, especially since really delving into MBC. So like, you want to know what's interesting? And this is where you know you've completely changed, is bullying. So like, seems kind of like out there, but when something happens and someone gets bullied, and I don't know why this took me this long to come up with, you know, like to think about this, but it's always the victim, of course, like, this is not okay. You bullied this person. I don't, pick the definition you want to pick. And then I'm like, okay, so why is the bully? Like, what's going on with the bully? Because bullies don't bully just to bully. Like, there's a reason why they're doing that. So like, when I hear these scenarios happening, and I've thought about this maybe in the last 4 or 5 months, and we do this all the time with our kids, like they're misunderstood. I mean, that's a judgment, but they're misunderstood. It's really the same thing. Like, what is going on? And I immediately have empathy for both, because of course I'll just say victim and the bullier or whatever, bully versus bullier. And I have empathy for like what's going on. And that's what restorative justice is with MBC, is when somebody commits a crime and they have to go to this restorative justice program. Actually, Dr. Bigby just did another one on this last one, and he had a guest on, and that's what he said. He's like, we look at the why, like, why is that happening? That's what it is. We try to restore, and look at why that person committed a crime in whatever way that looks like. And they have to do it, but then you sit down and now you're like, holy cow, I have so much empathy for this person. Look at look what they've gone through, or look what that's a different way of thinking.
That's definitely a different way of thinking. And I guess I'm a little saddened by the field in general, because naturally we do that for our clients. Naturally, that is what ABA is, finding out why people behave the way that they behave. And for us to not do that with
each other, and
for each other, with our staff, like with everyone, like why not?
And that's why I love MBC and ACT and like all of those, this kind of area and connection is, it's and reflective practice. I mean, really is what it is, because, even when I've gotten up in the morning and my husband goes, well, man, you're the negative train today. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you just gave me a list of like 6 things and they were all negative. And I'm like, oh, thank you for telling me that. I was trying to have solutions to like our list, but it's like, again, then I was able to not get mad. I was able to go like, that's pretty accurate, like, and then you like to have empathy on yourself and then to talk about it. And like, that's very different than like, or when somebody gets upset at you, I immediately think now, like, what's really going on? Like, why are they getting upset over something that seems so trivial or not such a big, and then I really think about what they've their day, if I know or not. And then you talk to them about it, and all of a sudden they're like, I didn't mean to take that on you. Like, that had nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? So that's that reflective piece and that giving empathy piece and just really understanding why we feel and what we're really needing in those moments.
Mhm.
And that's ABA too, because again, it's fascinating to me that we can do that with our clients.
We do it every day.
But we walk in and we get mad, or we feel some sort of way,
Mhm.
frustration, or right?
Mhm.
It really is fascinating to me because it's all the same.
Our whole career is honestly like why people behave the way they behave. And we have all these ways to do that.
And all the tools.
And all the, yeah, and all the tools and all the research and all the things. And yet for one another,
We just ignore that a lot of times
Mhm.
with the tools we have.
Or we're not engaging in like that self-reflection, like, okay, let me take a minute and see. And it is a different way. It is a different way of thinking. It's a different practice to look inward.
Totally.
And you might look inward and be like, yeah, no, I didn't do that. You know, like you might look inward and not
get scared.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And that's
a
whole nother thing.
Mhm.
I think that's why it's also so important that we do bring like accepting and commitment therapy and things into our practice, because like
Mhm.
the ACT pieces also cause you to look inward, like
Yeah.
selfless context and like acceptance and
Mhm.
like it is all behavior.
And acceptance is like is huge because we're all looking for acceptance, and that's belonging.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was just a full circle.
You just did that.
We gotta write that on the wall.
I know. Okay, don't forget.
I'm gonna write it down. Where's my pen? I need a pen. Okay. Yeah. So what else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, we as far as like cultural responsiveness, it was talking about like understanding one's own culture and experiences. This took me a long time to do, actually.
Which one?
It's talking about like understanding your own like cultural experiences, which we touched on a little bit. That took a while, because when someone asks you like, what is your culture?
Oh,
Like,
that's how I asked that in the beginning.
Well, no, like, but
Or
for
just in
yourself,
general?
like,
Okay.
what is your culture? Like, it took me a while to identify like what is
your culture?
What is my culture?
Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like, well, also looking at like, well, who, like, to me, it was like, well, who am I?
Who are you?
Who am I? That's where I say I'm a female mother, you know, like you go through those, right?
Yep.
But then also,
who really are you?
yeah, but then also like more like that's where ACT helped me a lot, because it helped me to identify like, well, what are my values? So I have a huge value of like curiosity, as you know, right? I have I enjoy like fun, like I want to make things fun. Our needs.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
I still don't have it all together, you know, like I still have to think about like at the end of the day, like who are you? What is your culture? Because if I don't know, then it's hard for me to identify how my learning history and who I am plays a part in or with other people.
right. Well, and for me, as I learn about myself, as I reflect, as the days go on, the hours go on, it is really, you learn more about yourself. You learn, like, for me, I really, my need really is for humor and fun, and you can't have humor and fun all the time. And that's hard for me because that's one of my biggest needs for sure. And I didn't realize how much I really enjoy that piece. So again, we've said this before too, but like when things get super serious, like I have to take a break. And that's not everybody. And it's also what I've learned, and we just talked about this on, maybe it wasn't at the one meeting you were at, but we talked about it's okay, maybe it was, but Scott talked about like, it's okay that like, not everybody's, I didn't say like that, but like I want to laugh and I want to have fun, but maybe he's not like that. And he's like, I'm okay with just like this.
Mhm.
You know, I don't remember exactly how we were at that meeting when he was saying that. It's not like uncomfortable, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't know if I was at that one, but like,
But that's not a need. My need is more
Yeah.
for like, I don't like that, you know, and I
Mhm.
want to be like, I want to end it and have a good time and laugh. And that's not everybody. And I got to be okay with that, just like they have to be okay with me. And I've said that before. I've been made fun of for my laugh. I've been made fun of because I'm loud. I've been made fun of. And then that's an insecurity. So then I want emotional safety. And that's
Mhm.
what is a big deal for me in the company. And I have to keep reminding myself, like, everybody's different and everybody's need looks a little bit, we're all the same, but we're different, you know? So like, some people don't look for humor.
Yeah.
They're more like, that's not, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
It's not a need of mine. A need is, I don't know, for just, like I talk about, or we've talked about person A type personalities and how they want this, and I'm like, okay, this guy, I mean, I like that too, but now I just want to laugh and I want to just have a good time and I want to realize that this is still a fun place.
Mhm.
But that's not everybody. That actually is the opposite of what some people need because they want to get all this done because my fun is impeding that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got to be okay with that. And I've got to realize that then everybody wants that. I guess that's where I'm trying to go with that. So that was something Scott brought in. He said it differently. But and you got to be okay with that, Farah. He didn't say Farah, but
Mhm.
like, you know, that's the kind of the talk of like, and it doesn't end, and you can end on a piece. We did definitely talk about this on Monday, is you can end and you have to wrap up like we are right now. We're not done, and there's still answers. The answers aren't answered yet.
Yeah.
We don't have a conclusion. We were not finished, and you never really do when you're talking about culture and belonging.
You never finish, no.
And that's uneasy for some people. And it was very uneasy for us in the
Mhm.
beginning as we wanted like, so what are we doing?
Because typically there's strategy, right? Or there's
Yes.
like there's results, there's like
Solutions.
solutions, yeah. And this doesn't have that. Like even
uncomfortable.
us talking about this today, I have a whole, I'm self-reflecting and providing myself some self-empathy in different ways, even as we're talking about this, because things are coming up for me that I'm like, oh, like do I actually know? And I don't know. I mean, so
It's different for
there's
everybody.
constant I don't want to say like work, but as long as you're living and breathing, you're doing this.
Well, there you go. That might be a phrase we say.
We don't have phrases today.
Breathing.
If someone knows how to like paint or something or
Living, breathing.
cursive the wall with quotes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's a big part of what I've learned in the last year, as far as the way that to summarize kind of what we've talked about is, and this goes back to needs, it goes back to some of the things you said about acts, and is it's different for everybody and it could be different at different hours of the day. Like there's certain hours of the day I am like, I have a list of 20 things and I need to get this done and I need everybody to work together to get this done so we can get to this so we can move on, you know, or it's too much for you. We got to pull this off of here. We got to do this. And so I definitely, there's that side of me, but then I have to have the other part too. I still have to tap into that. And I think it's different for you too, depending on lots of things. Like you even said, I really look forward to the podcast and letting just kind of like, I don't put words in your mouth.
And I honestly don't plan for any podcasts because it's my outlet to fully be present and express whatever comes out of my mouth, honestly. Like I try not to prep too much for it because it's my place
Yeah.
to engage in curiosity. Like, let me think about that. Or I'm not sure. It's my place to be present, and it's my place to communicate.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's the
and
need you're
grow
looking
and
for.
could grow.
Yeah.
And to maybe be uncomfortable sometimes, because that's also something that I've worked on, is like putting myself in uncomfortable situations to just like be, and to be like okay and like confident in that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that too. And I think that was what I was doing in the beginning with the mentor position too. Like I really wanted to just be present with them and listen to them and hear them. And I mean, I still am doing that, but my intentions definitely shaped to different areas, and it still is. But I think that is why I enjoy that so much too, much like the podcast, is you can be curious.
You're authentic
You can
too,
be,
because you're like, if you go in without like necessarily an agenda or like an intention, sometimes it brings up like just authentic self, and sometimes that's good too. Because typically, like if you think about it, like especially, I don't know for you, but for me, like my entire day is usually like planned out.
yeah.
Like my schedule is like, I mean, I have people complain, I can't put anything on your schedule. Your schedule, like, there's no room for anything on your schedule.
There isn't.
And like lately, I've just kind of been like, well, I'm not gonna like my schedule is how my schedule is, and sometimes that's nice too, because I'm like, I mean, I typically go into meetings with like an intention, right? Like, okay, this is like my intent for this or purpose for this, and like, but whatever comes, and I'm such a planner that I actually like having outlets for whatever happens. I guess
I
it's my
mean,
spontaneous, like my need for what, I don't know if spontaneous
adventure?
is on there. Adventure, yeah.
Do you like adventure?
I love adventure.
I love
Freedom.
surprises. So where does that fall? Adventure? Does that sound?
Ooh,
I love it.
surprises.
Like if Jason says to me, my husband, and he
Yeah.
says, "I have a surprise," it is. Oh, it gets me really excited. I'm like, "What's the surprise?" He goes, "It's hard because you constantly want newness and surprises, and and if I think about that, I think about that goes back to that was my life. I was always new. I never knew it was coming. And so I think it became kind of like I don't know, like something I turned into, like I either get upset by that because I don't have the consistency in my life, or I embrace it and I make it exciting. So I think that's where it came from, from history and childhood and things like that I made it fun. And I think that's where I made fun and humor, because otherwise you go the other way and you freak out and you're like trying to cling to routine. And, so that's why I think I go in and out of that. And why I love doing things like this. I love connecting with people because there's a surprise. You don't know what's going to happen. I just think I realized that. Like really, because you go in and it's unknown, and I love that. Like I know that I love the unknown, which is why I loved Sonnenberg and why this started, because I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. We're just gonna go in and it's gonna be fun. And then that terrifies people.
Yeah.
Lots of people do not, and I think I can say that lots of people, including my husband, do not like surprises. They want to know. And if they know that it's going to be the unknown and it's like, they know that, that's one thing, but to be surprised and kind of like caught off guard, we've had a lot of people like that. Like our admin team is not like that. Like you can see where people go into certain departments because it's predictable, it's routine, it's right.
Yeah.
And we need those people.
We definitely need those. I need those people.
I need those people.
I mean, I'm very much I thrive in chaos. I just do. I just do.
I don't do. It's a problem sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
But like James coming in, like he is the opposite of me. And we needed somebody that was like, hold on, we need like this is what needs to happen, and they need
Mhm.
us. So like, that's what I love about it. And I think that's what I love about connection with people and relationships. It can drive me nuts too. But I think that's what I like. I just realized that right now is why I thrive off of that, because it's the unknown. Somebody comes in, you don't know.
Hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, oh, let me figure you out. Let me see what I can do. What can you bring to this team? Because it's probably different than me. It's probably different than you. Maybe it's not. But there's, and that's where the belonging comes in, right? Because you bring
Mhm.
somebody in, it takes a while for most people, I would say, because you don't know what their strengths are, or they say
Yeah.
their strength is this, and it actually maybe doesn't fit that team. That we do that a lot too. Doesn't fit this
We
team,
do
so
that a
let's put
lot.
you over here. How do you belong?
That's why with some of these
Yeah.
like needs too, I often will ask like, well, what does that mean for you? Right? Because like
that.
you could say like I have a need for fun, but like the fun looks different.
Mhm.
Like
That's
you
true.
said that you like surprises offer like fun or like maybe adventure and fun. For me, I don't like surprises, but I like being in the moment.
Well, you're right. I don't like surprises. If somebody were to come up to me and say,
Like,
well, I would like that. Like my son does to me. I don't want him to scare me. Yeah, like, although I go to like a haunted house, I would love that. But I don't want, like, JJ will jump out at me and like every day, 10 times a day, and I have a heart attack, and I'm like done with it.
I think that's kind of fun.
Oh my gosh. So you're right. It depends on, again, what group.
It does.
And do you belong, like my group, like if I think of like my kids and my family in that group, that's one, or even with that relationship with JJ, I want to punch him. I'm not going to punch him. But yet if I'm at a haunted house, that's great. Or if Jason surprises me, my husband, with something, like this weekend, he's going to surprise me for my birthday, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I'm excited for you. It sounds fun.
I mean, that's fun. But yeah, if like billing department came to me and surprised me with something that wasn't so good, that would not be so much fun. So it is group, but that kind of is full circle too. Look at this.
It is. It depends who surprises you. And with what.
And that's true. And what your connection is or not. And the department, I mean, just look at that. Like that really made me think about that. Because you're right.
That means your needs would like alter quite a bit, right?
It really does.
Depending on like who you're talking with or what group or.
Yeah, because I don't need to have fun with my attorneys.
Yeah, no, like
I don't really want to have fun with you. I want to like talk to you, get it done, and get out.
Mhm.
Like that's because it's not going to be fun to have to pay you all that money to have fun. So that's a good point, because that's really, my need. What does that mean? That's a good point. And and that's why it does shift.
Yeah, because like I'm thinking about what's fun for me. And what's fun for me is like doing absolutely nothing. And for me, well, you said fun to have like to be in the moment. That's the best I could describe it. To like not have an agenda, to just like be like freedom is fun to me, I guess.
Well, and you have said you're a movie watcher. And people would be surprised by that. I am also a movie watcher, and people are so surprised. I can sit there and stare at a TV for. I could have
I already watched all the episodes of Love Is Blind, and it came out.
I did too. See. And people would probably be really surprised. Jason would be like, "Oh my God, any of those things they drive me nuts," But yeah, I mean, but yet I love being outside. I love being in like taking walks and exercising, but I love laying in front of the TV and just not having to think about anything. I think that's why I like it, because I've been asked like, why do you? I'm like, because I don't think about anything. It's just whatever's on the screen. So that could be really boring to some people. Like my sisters, they don't want anything to do with that. Two of them. They're like, that would bore the heck out of me. I want to be doing this. And I'm like, well, I do too, but not all the time.
Yeah.
I think a lot at work. I think a lot of like everything that we do, it's nice to not think.
It is. It's nice to not think.
Duh. Yeah, I did nothing
That's
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But if you had
I
like a
think
factory job and you were just doing the same thing and you don't have to think, maybe that would be different for somebody.
maybe.
I'm not saying it is or it's not, but like, that's not what we do. We don't put a cog that it just is repeated and you don't have to think about it over and over again. It's different every hour. It's different every day. It's different. Ours for sure. I would say most people here. Right?
I think it's different every day. And there's a constant, like, we never want to do things that aren't working either. So it's a constant, like, okay, we tried this, did it work, did it not? Like, it's a constant, like, reflection. And that's why, like, sometimes it comes about as like, oh, there's all this change. At the same time, we're also behavior analysts. So if the intervention's not working, then something needs to be done.
That's true. And that's kind of when I give a list of whatever it is, or I'm doing, it's because I want solution. I want a strategy that works so we can be done with that and we move on to the next thing. Because I also want to move on. So, and to the next, so that makes sense too. Well, that's just been really reflective.
It has been really
It always is though.
Yeah.
I'm always like, wow, I just learned a lot. I hope you guys learned a lot too, or hopefully when you watch this, hopefully somebody's gonna watch this. And
no one is gonna watch.
That it is. And that's what I mean. Like you brought some stuff, I brought some stuff, and it does get my brain thinking, but we always go off on a totally different. Many times, right?
Yeah.
I love.
That's fun to me.
That's total fun to me because I like to learn.
Yeah.
And you're curious. I'm curious. I mean, that I love that. I love it. All right. Well, cool. I guess that's it, right?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, have a great week when you see this, or end of week, I think when you'll see this, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye guys.